What is the offshore opacity stack? It is a PI concept for understanding how wealth, transactions, and financial power can become difficult for democratic systems to see, classify, and constrain. A tax haven is not merely a place with low tax. It can become part of a layered architecture. At the first layer, there is economic reality. Wealth is created, profits are made, value is extracted, ownership is exercised. At the second layer, legal form is introduced: companies, trusts, certificates, contracts, loans, tax credits, and ownership structures. At the third layer, jurisdictional separation appears. Entities are placed across borders, often in places where secrecy, favorable tax treatment, or weak disclosure rules make public oversight difficult. At the fourth layer, professional intermediation enters. Lawyers, accountants, banks, advisors, and consultants translate economic reality into technically defensible arrangements. At the fifth layer, public institutions face the problem. Regulators, tax authorities, courts, parliaments, and journalists must decide what the arrangement actually is. Is it legitimate planning? Aggressive avoidance? A loophole? A sham? A failure of law? Or something that has not yet been properly classified? This is where the governance problem begins. Because democratic systems cannot govern what they cannot see. They cannot constrain what they cannot classify, and they cannot restore legitimacy when the public cannot understand how obligation has been moved out of view. The offshore opacity stack is therefore not just about tax. It is about visibility. It is about classification. It is about the relationship between private financial architecture and public democratic authority. When ordinary citizens remain fully visible to the tax system, but powerful actors can move wealth through legal forms, offshore entities, and jurisdictional gaps, the shared obligation structure begins to fracture. People do not only resent paying tax, they resent being visible inside a system where greater power can become invisible. That is the legitimacy crisis. The offshore opacity stack helps us see the layers: economic reality, legal form, jurisdictional separation, professional intermediation, institutional limitation, media under-explanation, public incomprehension. Together, these layers can protect private advantage from democratic constraint. This does not mean every offshore arrangement is criminal. That is not the point. The deeper question is whether legal form still preserves economic reality, or whether it has become a shield against public obligation. In PI terms, this is a problem of fiscal admissibility. A financial arrangement becomes governance relevant when it weakens visibility, equality before the law, institutional constraint, or the shared obligation structure of society. The offshore opacity stack is a warning. When wealth escapes classification, democracy loses constraint. When democracy loses constraint, legitimacy becomes fragile. And when legitimacy becomes fragile, private power begins to govern from outside the public obligation structure. PI, a discipline, not a trend. A framework, not an opinion. Frameworks turn complexity into admissible decisions.